On a quiet September afternoon in 2022, a Sacramento HVAC contractor drove to an empty house in rural Kentucky for an emergency service call. He never made it back home. What investigators uncovered cracked open a case involving a California Highway Patrol captain, an amateur hitman in Napa Valley, and a marriage that turned into something no one saw coming. To start this story off, let me tell you a little bit about Michael Harding. He was 53 years old. He owned a small HVAC business he had built from nothing in Sacramento, and according to every neighbor who ever lived near him, he was the Mr. Fix-It, the guy on the block who fixed everything. Saturday morning, your AC quits, you call Michael. It's 9 at night, your heater's making a weird clicking noise, you pick up the phone and you call Michael. He didn't turn down jobs. He was a veteran, Army and Navy both, and the word people kept using about him in interviews after he died was reliable. He was steadfast, the guy who always showed up when someone needed help. That same instinct to say yes is what eventually led him to a vacant house in Burkesville, Kentucky, on a quiet Monday in September of 2022. His wife, Julie, was a different story altogether. Julie Vernman Harding, 49 years old, captain in the California Highway Patrol. She joined CHP in 1999, and she spent 22 years climbing through the ranks of an agency that didn't even allow women into its academy until 1974. By 2018, she was running the Yuba Sutter Division up in the rural northern stretch of California, every inch of her authority earned across 2 decades in uniform. The Hardings married in January of 2019, and they bought a lakefront home in Salina, Tennessee that fall. The whole plan was a retirement spot, with the slower pace they both said they wanted. Michael went first. He moved his HVAC business out east, made friends on the lake, started building a life there. Julie stayed in Sacramento, where her career was anchored and her division still needed her. If you've ever been in a long-distance marriage or relationship, you can probably guess where this story is heading. By the spring of 2022, the relationship had quietly curdled into something dangerous. Julie filed for divorce in May of 2022. That very same month, she made 3 big cash withdrawals from joint accounts that she held with Michael, accounts in both California and Tennessee. One was $102,000, another was $73,000, a third was $47,700, roughly $220,000 disappearing in a matter of weeks, and Michael had no idea any of this was happening. Around the same window, Julie was on the phone constantly with a man named Thomas O'Donnell. Thomas lived in Napa Valley, of all places, the wine country. He was 60 years old. He had a 2006 felony stalking charge out of Texas, and somewhere along the line, he and Julie had developed a serious romantic connection. From July through September 8th of 2022, the two of them logged 194 phone contacts with each other, sometimes more than once a day. His own sister would later testify that her brother had real feelings for Julie. Investigators searching Julie's office after all of this went down found Valentine's and birthday cards, all addressed to her, all signed Rob, a name Thomas was known to use. Whatever was happening between the two of those ran a lot deeper than money or logistics. Thomas was in love with her, or so he believed. And that feeling gets people to do things they would otherwise probably never do. Meanwhile, Michael had moved on. Don't feel bad for Michael. He was living in Tennessee, had a new girlfriend named Natasha, and he told friends something in the weeks before his death that you don't forget once you have heard it. He said he was afraid of his wife. He specifically told people that she worked for the Highway Patrol, and that fact frightened him in a way that he couldn't really articulate. He just said he was scared of her. He knew what she was capable of. A friend later told a TV station that he knew something we didn't know. On September 17, 2022, cell phone records placed Thomas near Julie's Sacramento home. On September 18th, he flies to Tennessee. On September 19th, someone using a burner phone contacts Michael about an emergency HVAC issue at a vacant property on Glasgow Road in Burkesville, Kentucky, about 20 miles from his Tennessee home. The house was listed for sale. Whoever called had the lockbox code. Michael, doing what Michael always did, agreed to come. He even texted from the road. 35 minutes out, the text said. When Michael arrived at the vacant house, he was shot 4 times, twice in the head and twice in the body. Then Thomas O'Donnell got back in his car and drove away. 11 days before any of this happened, by the way, all phone contact between Julie and Thomas had abruptly stopped. After 3 solid months of daily calls, the line between them went completely dead. That silence, in retrospect, looks an awful lot like operational security. Michael's family obviously did not hear from him that night or the next day. He was reported missing on September 20th. For almost a week, nobody knew where he was. On September 26th, just after 1 p.m, a real estate agent showed up to prepare the property on Glasgow Road for showing. She walked in, found him on the floor, and called 911. Kentucky State Police took the lead on the case, partnering with the FBI's Louisville office with agencies in Tennessee and California. They had no murder weapon, no eyewitness, and no documented payment changing hands. What they did have was a digital trail so dense, the prosecution could basically walk a jury through Thomas O'Donnell's every step. Cell tower data placed him near Julie's Sacramento home, then in Tennessee, then in Kentucky on September 19th. Google searches showed he had looked up the Glasgow Road address before he ever left California. Hotel records, flight records, and the burner phone all pinged along the same route. His commercial travel was booked under his own name, a mistake no actual professional killer would ever make. Then there was Julie. On the same day Michael's body was discovered, somebody factory reset one of her 2 cell phones, wiping it completely. That same afternoon, Julie picked up the phone and called her new supervisor at CHP, an assistant chief named Doug Lyons, a man she had never met in person. She spent 35 minutes on the line with him. Lyons testified later that the call was rambling and strange. When the prosecutor asked whether the call made him think Julie might be a suspect, his answer was, absolutely. She was a 22-year veteran of California law enforcement and knew exactly how investigations worked. She tried to create a witness for herself and accidentally handed investigators a giant red flag instead. Over the next 2.5 months, things got kind of strange. Natasha, Michael's girlfriend, filed 2 police reports in Tennessee. In one, Julie had walked up to Natasha's home, appeared on the Ring camera, opened the front door, and called the dog over, and physically picked up Charlie, who was Michael's dog, and walked out with him. In the second report, Julie hacked into Natasha's Netflix account, deleted her profiles, and created a new one with her own first name on it. Again, this is a 22-year California Highway Patrol commander logging into her dead husband's girlfriend's streaming account to leave her name behind. Super bonkers. That's the kind of behavior of someone coming apart at the seams. On December 8th, 2022, Thomas was arrested at a Sacramento International Airport. The tip that led to his arrest came from his own sister, who called CHP because she knew about his connection to Julie. That same day in Tennessee, Julie was arrested on a criminal trespassing warrant and released later that afternoon. 2 days later, on December 10th, a mail carrier in Salina, Tennessee walked up to the lakefront home that Michael and Julie had once dreamed about retiring in together and found Julie dead in the yard from a single gunshot wound to the head. She was 49 years old, and her death was ruled a suicide. After that, Thomas O'Donnell sat in custody for 3.5 years. In April of 2026, weeks before trial, he tried to plead guilty to a lesser conspiracy charge in exchange for 22 years. The judge rejected the deal because he wanted somebody held fully accountable. A few weeks later, in a Kentucky courtroom, the jury heard every text, every cell tower ping, every Valentine's Day card, every Google search. They came back with a guilty verdict in 2 hours. The sentencing judge, who'd been practicing law for 45 years, called it one of the most cold-blooded acts he had ever seen. Thomas, now 64 years old, will almost certainly die in prison. Julie Harding never sat in a courtroom and never answered a single question under oath. And Michael Harding's daughter, Heather, watched that verdict come down in a small-town Kentucky courthouse, telling reporters afterward that she and her family were both in shock and relieved. Thanks for listening to 10 Minute Murder, bingeable true crime stories. I'm Joe. I'm the host. Hi. Here's an email. Subject, mission accomplished. Hi, Joe. I finally convinced my dad to give your podcast a shot. He's the type who still burns CDs for road trips, so I was not optimistic. Yesterday, he asked if you release on the same day every week. I'd say you've got another fan. Jake in Terre Haute, Indiana. Jake, my man, appreciate it. And thank you to your dad as well. Tell your dad yes, Tuesdays and Thursdays every week. And sometimes, if I've got time, I'll throw in an extra episode. That one kind of floats. Sometimes it's on a Monday or a Saturday. There's no rhyme or reason to that extra third episode. I figure if I'm reliable on the Tuesdays and the Thursdays, that extra is like gravy. You can just be surprised if it's there when you open the app. Hey, if you're a new listener like Jake's dad is, make sure you hit subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Sometimes that means in a couple of different places. I know personally, I use Apple Podcasts the most and Spotify the most. Those two are like my main two podcast listening apps. And I subscribe to the same show on both ones just because you never know which app I'm going to be in. So I might listen to the same podcast on two different apps. So if that's you also, if you're weird like I am, subscribe on both of those. If you want to contact me or get more information about the show, you can go to 10minutemurder.com. And also there at 10minutemurder.com, you'll get listen links, other places you can listen, and also links to where you can find the podcast on social media. All right, that's going to do it. That's your episode for today. Thank you again for listening to 10 Minute Murder. See you next time.